Everybody says that they want to level up, but if I asked 100 people what that actually means, I would probably get 100 different answers. Some people think it's losing weight versus some other people feel like it's getting rich, while other people feel like it is finding a man. But none of those things are a level up. Those are just possible outcomes of leveling up. So, what does it actually mean to level up? For one thing, leveling up is an entire change in identity. Most people think that it's just changing what they have, but I think that it's really changing who they are. You become a different person when you take on different habits, when you hold yourself and others to different standards, when you switch up your priorities, when you start to take on new beliefs, and when you begin to react with, different emotional responses. A level up isn't just when your life changes, it's when you change enough that your life has no choice but to change with you. My second point is that when it comes to leveling up, your environment is going to start asking different things of you. And I have spoken about this before on my channel. I believe I have a video talking about, if you search on my channel, just level up, you'll see different videos where I talk about this. But I've compared it to a game before, and this connects directly to my entire idea for this video. Every level is going to come with different expectations. Some examples of this look like, a better paying job requiring different communication skills to maintain it. If you think about the difference between being a fry cook versus maybe being a CEO, you may not speak at all, being a fry cook, or there may be a lot of yelling. It may be, people speaking in certain ways that are more unprofessional or whatever, versus, when you become a CEO, you may have to communicate in a way that is more structured, that's more professional, that's more motivational, that's more direct. Also things like a healthier body, that is going to require different eating habits, different beliefs about eating, different beliefs about health and about fitness. If you want to have a healthier relationship, that requires different conflict resolution skills, different ways of interacting with somebody. Also, things like starting a business, that's going to require you to have a different tolerance for risk. Some people, the riskiest thing that they can do is maybe go on a roller coaster, versus some people, the riskiest thing they can do is quit their job and start a business. That's a whole different level of being able to tolerate a risk. There also can be, the difference between being financially unstable and becoming financially stable. That's going to require delayed gratification. Like maybe if you're growing your wealth, or if you're budgeting, or if you're saving up for something, if you're investing, anything like that, you're not just getting more. What's happening is you're becoming capable of more. My third point is that your old habits, they stop working. Like the things that used to get you through, there's like a certain way that you exist, certain habits, certain behaviors, certain thoughts. And when you level up, those things have to change. So whatever habits that you have, they stop working in your life. You start getting more frustrated because eventually you start to realize that these habits don't actually lead me to the life that I want. And so you start to maybe become disgusted with the habits, or maybe you are fired up. Maybe you're angry about the habits. Maybe you're angry or you're triggered by other people who still have that habit that you used to have. Maybe you can't hang out with certain people anymore. All of these things can happen when you consider the fact that every level is going to have a different price tag attached to it. The habits that got you to where you are now are not going to get you to where you want to be. These are things like procrastination, putting it off until later. When oftentimes people are procrastinating because they're afraid of what happens if it actually does work out. What happens, a lot of people, they're afraid to have to hold themselves to the standard of having new habits. Sometimes people are more comfortable with something just being a fluke. They're not comfortable with sustaining success over the long term. Things like people pleasing. People pleasing doesn't have any room in a leveled up life. Overspending, constant comparison, even avoiding difficult conversations. That's something that at a certain level you can't do anymore. Just like my previous point where I was saying that, your environment starts asking different things of you. Your leveled up lifestyle that you're living is going to require you to start being direct about the difficult conversation. You're going to have to do that. It's going to require that in order for you to sustain that type of lifestyle. And so when I was speaking before about how, leveling up is becoming the new person and then the new life comes along with that, these habits are basically the example of that. You get rid of these habits and then all of a sudden your life has no choice but to become the life that happens when you add all of these ingredients, or you basically knock down these barriers that are standing in between you and the life that you want. Sometimes leveling up, like to get more and to become capable of more, means letting go. Sometimes you have to let go of old environments, old people, old places, old things, old habits, beliefs, even strategies that once helped you survive in a different mode. Especially if you're trying to go from surviving to thriving, certain habits, they won't work anymore. And this is something that I talk a lot about, and something I've done a lot of personal work on myself, is increasing my capacity. And this is something that a lot of people overlook. A level up means increasing your capacity to handle things. For people who have a leveled up life, doing hard things is their normal, versus people who have a dusty life, doing hard things is really hard. It's very rare. When doing hard things, acting like it's not that hard, basically having this Elle Woods mindset of like, what? Like it's hard? That makes it so you have this new lifestyle where all of a sudden you can, handle a different type of stress. You can go from the stress of poverty to the stress of, oh, now I actually don't get a refund and now I have to pay taxes. That's a different kind of stress. Okay, how am I going to pay this? Versus, you may still have stress, but in one version of your life. In poverty, it may be stress over when your fund will come and hit your account, versus at a higher level, at a leveled up lifestyle, that stress, you have a new capacity. Maybe it's stress for, okay, how much do I need to set aside each year to be able to pay back on my taxes? You have to increase your capacity to handle things like more responsibility, more money, because this is something that I have felt for a very long time, and I have actually seen this with my own two eyes. There is no benefit to dropping $100,000 in the hands of somebody who doesn't know how to handle $100,000. A lot of people are believing this lie that if they just receive more, if they just win the lottery or something, that all of a sudden they're going to be living this leveled up life. But that is not how it works. Leveling up is not, like I said previously, it's not about getting more. Because if you are the type of person who only knows how to manage $50, you can get more, you can stumble upon $100,000, and then you will be dusty still. I have literally watched with my own two. I'm going to talk about this over on the Patreon. So my Patreon link is always in my channel description. It's also down in the video description, because you know what? Maybe that's what I'm going to talk about next. I have to talk about the time that I saw with my own two eyes what happens when somebody thinks leveling up is all about just getting more, as opposed to becoming more, becoming capable of more. Because you will watch somebody get it all and go right back to being dusty. I've seen this, and so go over there if you want to see me talk about that. Maybe I'll record that after this. But you have to be able to handle a lot more attention. A lot of women, it's hard, especially if you have a glow up. Like, let's say that you are already like baseline attractive, and then you really start like leveling up your look. You have to now in order to maintain that energetically, the only way that you're going to be able to do that is you have to develop the skills of managing a higher volume of attention. If it becomes overwhelming, if it becomes something that you feel like you cannot manage, what's going to happen is you are going to level back down. That is what happens when you see a woman who gains weight back, or she she stops whatever routine she was doing that was making her glow from the inside out. She stops consuming the things that she used to, whatever that is. She falls off, she gets lazy. Oftentimes what's happening is she does not now have the ability developed to handle a higher volume of attention. And that is what happens when somebody falls off, or that's why they fall off. They say, whoa, whether or not they're aware of that being what's happening or not, they say, you know what, this is more than I've had to handle before. I actually cannot handle. That is what happens when somebody gets a lot of money and then they blow it all. They say, actually, you know what, I cannot handle this. The same thing with criticism. People will skip making themselves more visible. They will skip using their voice if they're very afraid of criticism. So you can't, let's say, you really want to have a viral moment, or you really want to go full out into your business. You really want to earn more than you have. You really want to have a lot of success in a certain type of area. Regardless of what you're trying to do, the type of life that you want to live is probably going to be something that comes to you through more eyes being on you. Oftentimes that's what's happening. If you're becoming more beautiful, if you're becoming more healthy, if you are becoming more wealthy, you're going to have more eyes on you usually, because you're gaining more of a trait or a privilege that other people want to have. And so they're going to be paying attention to you more, and they're going to have more to say. That doesn't mean that you're doing things wrong or that you're doing less things right than you did before. It just means that you're more visible now. And so in general, you are just having to handle, a higher level of criticism. There are a lot of people who are concerned with what you're doing and what you're not doing. And so now they really care, and you have to be able to handle that. Same thing with being able to handle a certain level of success. A lot of people get afraid of reaching a certain level of success because then it becomes something that they have to handle, something that they have to maintain. A lot of people don't understand that they subconsciously are blocking themselves from reaching whatever level it is, because they don't want to have to become more. Some people, they can be afraid of, even though maybe they have the goal of growing on a platform, even if they want to, be able to make money online, they want to be an entrepreneur, they want to have financial security, and they want to build generational wealth or continue that on, whatever that is. A lot of people may subconsciously block themselves from doing it because then they have to maintain it. Oh my God, if I have a $50,000 month, then what happens? I'm going to have to reset my baseline to that. So a lot of people, they are afraid of being able to maintain that capacity. Being able to handle uncertainty. Sometimes people, they're so unsure about the little day-to-day things, that little trivial things in their life. But at a higher level, you're going to have to handle uncertainty that has to do with thousands of dollars now, hundreds of thousands of dollars, people's livelihoods. So your uncertainty, you have to be able to handle that at a higher capacity in order to reach a new level. You have to become somebody who can manage $1,000 in order to eventually become somebody who can manage $10,000, and then eventually, $20,000, eventually all the way up to $100,000 and more. Somebody's who can't do that. If you can't manage it and you don't have the capacity on the low end, you're not going to get it on the high end. And it's not just because you're incapable, but it's because the demands of each position is different. And it's truly like a game. It's very rare that you play a game, no matter how good you are at gaming, that you just let's say there are 100 levels. It's very rare that you go to level 100 and then you can just easily do that. I don't know why I'm picturing right now, they have those games kind of like a Flappy Bird or something, but it's I don't think you call it a platform game. I'm pretty sure you don't. But it's those games where maybe you have to jump over something. I'm specifically thinking of a game where you have to jump over something and it's you're running and it keeps speeding up and basically you lose and go back to zero if you trip over. It's like a hurdle game or something like that. it's very rare that you would be able to go to the last hurdle of the game. Let's say the last hurdle is, a certain speed or a certain level there. You know, the game is always going to start you back at zero, because if you're not able to break through each level and really, you know, get to the point where you're increasing your capacity, and being able to meet the demands, if you can't reach the point where, you can jump over the hurdle at level 1, it's going to be way less likely that you'll be able to jump over the one at level 100. Even if you think, it's less time, a lot of people just want to jump there, but that's not always how it works. Sometimes you have to be able to build those skills on the front end. Different inputs are going to create different outputs. And that's my next point. You can't expect a different life while you are consuming the same things. It's like if you're consuming the amount of food that an obese person eats, then, you are going to become obese. There is no way around that. You're either going to remain obese or you are going to start becoming obese. There's no way around that. But if you have the habits, the mindset, the routine, the nutrition of a person who is skinny or a person who is very fit, very lean, then eventually you're going to become that. That's kind of just how it happens, because you are changing your input. And so it creates a different output. When you are deciding to read different books, when you're listening to different podcasts, when you're surrounding yourself with different types of friends, when you are daily and weekly and monthly doing different routines now than the ones you used to have, when you are flocking to different environments than the ones that you were in before, when you're having a different level of conversation than you had before, you are changing your input, and those inputs shape your thinking, and then your thinking is going to shape your actions. And that is how in real time you are becoming more, which is the level up, becoming more, not just having more. My next point is that your standards rise. And I did mention this before, but I want to just break down the fact that, when you become more, you are changing what you accept. Not because you're trying to impress people, but because you literally have changed as a person. You literally have grown. So that can mean that because you are becoming more, you literally don't fit with the same friends. You literally don't fit in the same work environment. You don't fit in that relationship anymore. You don't fit as a person who has those habits anymore. You don't fit having those goals anymore, or even those insecurities anymore. Sometimes the biggest sign that you have leveled up is realizing what no longer fits your life. That's something that I noticed a lot on my level up journey, was noticing that certain things, even if it was certain things, it's not even like a very malicious, I don't want this, I don't want this person, I don't want this thing, I don't want to be here, I hate it. Sometimes it's not even a strong hate or disdain. Sometimes it's literal, it's just a misfit. It doesn't fit anymore. And there's nothing that you can do about that. But that is a sign that you have leveled up. Another point that I want to make is that leveling up is internal before it's external. People usually will notice the external things first. People will notice the weight loss first. They will, like others, they'll notice the promotion first. They'll notice the new relationship first. They'll notice the wardrobe first. That's what they will notice first. But you, along your journey, are probably, before you get to those outputs, you're going to have to notice, to keep yourself going, oftentimes the visible changes that you can have if you're studying yourself, the changes in your confidence, the changes in your discipline, the changes in your emotional regulation, your self-respect, even your consistency. That internal work usually will come first before that thing that you can see. You have to change your level of discipline and consistency with your nutrition or with your fitness before you're going to see a change in how you fit your clothes, before you see a change on the scale, before you see the change in the mirror, because those are the outputs. A lot of people, they're just looking towards the output, but they're not willing to change the input. My next point is going to be that growth, if I'm being honest, it just feels so uncomfortable. It feels Like, growth does not always feel good. It doesn't always feel blissful and amazing. It doesn't always feel like, ooh, yeah, I'm leveling up. Sometimes through tears and through gritted teeth, it's like, ooh, I am leveling up. Okay, we're doing this. And that often means things that we can be like uncomfortable with. They just don't sit right with us. Like, even things like saying no, like, oh my God, I say no so easily now. I walk away from things so easily now. But oh, was it hard to start saying that, especially as a woman? You don't want to say no to anybody. We are very much conditioned that we are supposed to be nice and sweet and kind and good, and nobody wants to be mean. Nobody wants to hurt somebody else's feelings. That is just put into us. And we think about that when it comes to saying no or disappointing somebody or letting somebody down. But sometimes on your level up journey, you are saying no to somebody, and that is part of, that's like what that crossroads requires. Sometimes it requires a no if you want to continue on the path of leveling up. Sometimes it's saying no right there. Sometimes it's walking away right there. Sometimes that's just what it is, and it's uncomfortable. You're not really used to it. Sometimes you are not very good at saying no yet. Sometimes you're not very good at setting and maintaining boundaries. Sometimes you're not very good with consistency yet, or it's unfamiliar. Sometimes, when you are changing environments, maybe you now technically fit into a new environment, but when you're there, a lot of people have imposter syndrome show up where they feel like, I don't really fit in here. Like, I'm not really on this level, am I? And sometimes you are. But you've been there for a less amount of time, or a smaller amount of time. You're more used to your old environment. That is what feels familiar, but familiar does not equate to leveled up. That's not what that means. Just because it's familiar, just because you feel like it's easy to be embraced, just because you know how to navigate it, just because, it feels nostalgic, that doesn't mean that that is leveled up. Sometimes leveled up can mean unfamiliar. It can mean, maybe feeling unsure how to navigate. Maybe it can mean feeling not as confident as you would like to feel. But I think that when it comes to leveling up, sometimes you can't always be the smartest person in the room. Yeah, and when you're the smartest person in the room, you don't feel like there's any questions somebody could ask you that you're unprepared for, but you're not necessarily feeling challenged. Versus when you are, becoming this person who's in new rooms, you may be asked questions that you haven't been asked before, that you're not really prepared on how to answer. But like I spoke about how different environments are going to ask different things of you. Sometimes it is literally you being asked different questions because you're having different types of conversations with a different version of person. Disappointing people who preferred the old version of you can be very uncomfortable. It can come with a lot of grief. It can lead to, you having to move. It can lead to you ending a relationship. It can lead to you ending a job. It can lead to you, cutting communication with somebody. None of those things are just like easy things that we do as easily as we breathe. They're all hard things, but sometimes that is growth. That is what growth actually feels like. Sometimes growth does not always feel good to us, because sometimes things that are not good for us feel good to us, even when they are not good for us. Think about, for example, somebody who likes to drink, or somebody who is trauma bonded in a relationship. They are perceiving that thing. They're literally experiencing that thing as being good. If you're drinking a lot, you probably feel warm. You feel uninhibited. You feel braver. You feel more confident. It's easier to speak up and all these things. But you're literally damaging your organs. You're literally damaging your skin. It feels good, but it's not really good. You're literally not in your right mind state, but it feels really good. Being trauma bonded to somebody, you'll see this with people who are in like abusive relationships and things. That may be the person that they trust the most. That may be the person that feels the most like home, or the person that they feel the most seen by, the most validated by. But just because that's how you feel about somebody in a situation doesn't mean that that is the reality of what is actually happening. It doesn't mean that it is actually good for you. And a lot of people, they avoid growth because they want to avoid this uncomfortable feeling. They want to avoid discomfort. But discomfort doesn't automatically mean that you're on like the wrong path. Sometimes it means that you are on the right path, not all the time, but growth often involves stepping outside of what is familiar to you. The thing that you want that you don't have yet, it's probably unfamiliar to you. So the feelings that you have as you're achieving it, or as you're having it come into your life, it's going to feel uncomfortable. It's going to feel unfamiliar because it is unfamiliar. But eventually it might just feel like something where you feel like it's normal and it just feels like you're at home there. But it doesn't start off like that. Another point that I have is that it looks different for everyone. Leveling up does truly look different for every single person. A level up is not one specific lifestyle. On this channel, typically I talk about soft life, I talk about being high maintenance, I talk about pretty privilege, I talk about financial literacy sometimes. I talk a lot about like mental health and self-concept and psychology. That is what leveling up looks like for me a lot. But for another person, it might specifically mean going back to school. For another person, it might specifically mean becoming debt-free. For another person, it could be like leaving an unhealthy relationship. It could be learning to enjoy being single. There can be situations where leveling up is a combination of all of these things. It's your own little combo, your own little platter, if you will, of what your leveled up life looks like for you. So the destination for everybody is not necessarily identical, but the common thread is intentional growth. The common thread is becoming more. No matter what it is, it's going to require you to become more in some way, more of something. And then I want to say, my last point to put a bow on this would be that leveling up is ongoing. There is never one final version of yourself. Every new level is going to introduce new lessons to you. And don't ever be the type of person who's complacent, because I reference this in another video that you can look up on my channel. The psychology of people who attempt sabotage. Some people are not busy enough. Don't ever become complacent. Your level up should never be done, because most people, once they are not leveling up, the next thing they're doing is they are hating on the person who is. Growth is not about reaching perfection or like this mystical, magical place where you're just like, oh, I am leveled up now. Or at least for me, that's not what it looks like. It's about continuing always to learn, to adapt, and to expand your capabilities over time, to just see how high of a level can you really get to. Because certain games that you play, maybe the max level is 100, but in your life, what even is the final level? Does the final level exist? Like, do you even know what that looks like? And if so, could it be bigger? I don't know. Like, what if you don't know how good it could get for you? For me, that mindset definitely has helped me when I have not been complacent. I say, you know what? Okay, I checked this off, and that just shows me not that I should take a break and that I should stop leveling up, but like, wow, I'm actually really good at leveling up. Maybe leveling up should become my new obsession. Maybe I should see how amazing I could get at this thing. And it keeps me from hating on people. I am too busy to hate. I definitely feel like the central point to this, and I think one of my personal definitions of leveling up is that it's the intentional process of becoming the version of yourself that can create, that can receive, and that can sustain the life that you want. But what do you think about this, worldies? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you like this type of content, be sure to subscribe, like the video, and comment down below what you want to see from me next. Until next time, worldies, eyes on the prize.